Yes.
Funny, man.
Anthony Chang, Miami Herald. Jimmy, Gabe. Did it take a while? Did it feel like it took a while to get used to Denver's offense, just in the unique way they kind of generate shots around the rim, especially in the paint there early on?
I mean, they're a physical group, and I think we had to adjust to their physicality early, especially myself. I mean, they had a couple layups on me early that we had to adjust to. But, you know, it's a long series. First to 4 wins, adjustments will be made, and we'll learn from this loss.
First row in the middle, Joe Barton.
Joe Barton, The Athletic. 2 questions. First, Gabe, you got kicked in the head there. I was wondering how you're doing after that. And then when teams play the Nuggets in the playoffs, when they see them for the first time, they remark with how much force they play. And so I'm just wondering what you thought of the Nuggets through one game.
I mean, I got a lot of hair on my head, so my head's doing all right, thankfully. But they're a good team. They're well coached. They're talented. You know, it's going to be a challenge. It's the finals. You know, we don't expect it any other way. We're looking forward to game 2.
I definitely think they came out with a lot of physicality, and we have to be able to match that. They did their job on their home floor. You have to say that, but we will be ready. Like he said, we will adjust, do some things very differently, and come out here and be ready to get one for game 2.
We continue our post-game visits with Brian Windhorst. We have been chatting with him throughout these playoffs. In Denver in the first half was spectacular from 2. I think 65% on 2s, and they built a very big lead. What was notable about their offensive efficiency in the first 24 minutes?
You know, I got to say, Scott, if I'm the Heat, the good news and the bad news is that I thought they played pretty good defensively here. I'm not sure there's a way that they can solve what Denver presents. Denver only scored 104 points. Like, if you'd have told Eric Spoelstra that, 2.5 hours ago, he would have taken it in a blink of an eye. I actually think Denver can put up a lot more points than they did here tonight. Miami's zone was just ineffective, and I thought they played good in it. I thought they were good in the zone, but Denver just picks it apart. I do think in the fourth quarter, what the Heat really did was they decided they were going to try to sell out to block off Jokic's passing. There was a couple of times in the fourth quarter where Jokic found himself standing in the middle of the lane with nobody around him. He's like, okay, I guess I'll shoot. And so I think that might be the only hope that Miami has, because they did get back in the game in the fourth quarter. They were too far behind. But the formula that Denver presents is so complicated that this is going to be an extremely tall order. That's one thing the Heat are going to take away from that.
Right. I mean, they outscore them 30-20 in the fourth, but we're not going to do that thing like we did with the Lakers where he's like, oh, they figured some things out. I mean, this isn't like putting Rui on Jokic. I mean, is there a positive spin beyond what you just kind of gave me that they actually played all right?
Yeah, I think that the Heat generated a lot of open shots. They missed almost all of them in the first half. Max Strus and Duncan Robinson are 1 of 14 on threes. You're not beating anybody in the league when they shoot like that. But when you just look at the way Jokic breaks you down, and the other thing, Scott, is, and I know that it's not like Miami doesn't know how big the Nuggets are. It's not like if they sneak up with 3 7-footers in the starting lineup with anybody. But it's one thing to know that. It's another thing to actually play against it. And I thought Miami really felt the length of the Nuggets early in the game, and the Nuggets totally took advantage of that, obviously setting up Aaron Gordon when they had those mismatches. And so Eric Spoelstra is going to have to go back to the drawing board and try to figure out a way that they can mitigate the size. I don't know if he'll consider changing his starting lineup, because he started the small lineup with Caleb Martin. He could go back to Kevin Love, but they have ways they can exploit him. This Denver team is awesome. And the Heat actually didn't play that bad tonight.
I agree.
And they still were never in the game. And that's a real indication of where this series might go.
I had this conversation with Tim Legler during the game. When you watch a football game, if I hand the ball off and I get 6 yards on every carry, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to hand it off every single play until the game ends, because by rule, I'm going to get a first down every 2 plays, and then I'm going to score a touchdown. And I'm not going to try to get more clever than that if you can't stop it. What I appreciated about Denver, Brian, in the first half was you're just like, the hell with it. You want to put a 6'5" guy on Gordon, we're going to feed him and let him score a dozen points right out of the gate. I think Denver is just willing to do whatever you're going to allow them to do until you don't allow them to do that. And I don't think that's always, it feels more rare than it ought to feel. Am I right?
Yeah, and to your point, I don't even think Denver got really deep into their bag offensively tonight. I mean, Jokic, I think when it comes to his genius level, I think maybe it was a 7. I think he can do a lot more tonight. He didn't have to because the Heat sort of made their choices and he just executed where he wanted to go on the floor. When he and Murray are both playing like that, I just don't think you're beating them. I think your only chance of really, beating the Nuggets now 4 out of 6 is if either Murray or Jokic are off. Jokic is never off, so you're kind of gambling that Murray isn't going to shoot as well. So he comes out and goes 8 out of 12 in the first half. It's kind of curtains. I respect Eric Spoelstra, and I expect him to have some wrinkles in his game plan. But boy, did this math problem just look very difficult tonight. And if you're a Nuggets fan, you got to love what you saw. First finals win in team history.
I think we agree on all of it, and I think we both agree that each team could play better, particularly on offense. I don't presume Miami's going to miss as many threes as they did tonight. They better not, to your point. Brian, I appreciate the time, and we look forward to catching up again later down in the series. All right, that is Brian Windhorst. Tim, you got it working?
Looks like it. Trying to get this thing humming.
All right, well, figure it out, man.
All right, man.
We got a half an hour. Sort it out. Can we get IT on the phone?
Hey,
there we go. I see it moving. Start drawing arrows and whatnot. Who did a little better? Allen Iverson in 2001. Michael Jordan back in 1991, which was a really long time ago. But it might not seem that way sometimes. Right. Kids, you get old, then you're like, what happened? Tim Legler back with us. It works?
Looks like it. Let's hope. Don't jinx it.
Fingers crossed. All right, and this is basically I'm not kidding when I say Jokic is sublime. You've got sort of evidence of what it is he does in the passing game.
Yeah, what he reads, how he hurts you, how you have to continue to guard everybody on the floor,
and why you called him last night the most decisive player you've ever seen.
Yeah, he doesn't waste any emotions. Every decision he makes seems to be perfect at all times. This happened to the Heat a number of times in the first half, which is these cross matchups in transition, and you can see in this case that's Jamal Murray. He ran the floor, and Bam was the only guy back. So he ran with them. And the reason that's important because now here comes the big fella. He's lumbering up here at half court, and that means right off the bat you're going to have a smaller guy on him. Jimmy Butler's going to pick him up, and that tells Jokic right off the bat, okay, I'm going to go right down to the post end against a smaller player. Now, when he catches the ball, Scott, most of the time when a post player catches the basketball and he sees a guy in the strong side corner basically sitting in his lap, and he sees the guy guarding him is on baseline leverage, he clearly is going to want to spin to the middle. That's what any post player is going to want to do when they feel that kind of coverage in their lap. But watch what happens. As he's trying to figure out what's going on, take a look at this. He drops his top foot into the paint because he wanted to spin this way. But that's exactly the time when Highsmith came running from the weak side of the floor to crowd this area. So what does he do? Let me just pivot away from it. And just that quickly, he makes that decision to now put both defenders on the high side, which gives him a clear vision to the weak side. Now he's watching one guy, Kyle Lowry. What are you going to do? Are you going to jump out to the shooter? That's the case. I'll hit Aaron Gordon. You want to stay here on Aaron Gordon? And it helps when Aaron Gordon very smartly here sets a nice screen on Kyle Lowry, and then this ball is just delivered on a rope to the weak side. So even when Jokic, it looked like you defended him properly, his instinct to spin away from traffic and make a great play out of it anyway. Now, here you go. This reminds me actually a lot of when Parker and Duncan used to run pick and roll. Look how deep it is. This is below the foul line. They don't want to switch this, but when it's this deep, you don't have a choice. So as Murray comes off, you're going to get the switch. And once again, Jokic now with a smaller guy in the post. And this is what I'm talking about, having to defend them the entire time he's got the basketball, even on the weak side. It's a great read right here by Porter. He's going to set this screen. You're going to see a little flare cut here by Murray. Heat don't play this very well, but the reason is because Gabe Vincent is very concerned about Porter setting this screen and popping out, but he doesn't communicate that. Instead, now Jamal Murray floats to the open spot, and once again, the ball is delivered perfectly, exactly where it needs to at exactly the right time. Murray steps into it on balance and drains a three. So the first quarter, Jokic didn't spend much time in the post, right? Second quarter, he started taking advantage of these switches and mismatches to get down there and seeing how the Heat were going to react. And as you can see, he can pick you apart from that position on the floor better than any player in the NBA.
We both have great respect for Eric Spoelstra and this Heat team, right? And no one's going to take one game and say that this is a wrap. I'm not saying that. But Brian Windhorst was like, just fundamentally, there's some issues here that I don't know how you solve them.
You could sit up there. You can give me the little tired,
wake up and listen.
I'm bored kind of face. All you want, Mr. Smith. I am preaching the truth right now when it comes to it, and you know it. You know you had questions around Monty Williams and the way he utilized Kevin Durant in that offense. You know that they played better when Devin Booker actually had the ball in his hands, right? But it's still not the old KD that we saw in Brooklyn. It's a KD that was trying to figure out a new scheme with new players and no CP3 to actually orchestrate putting him in a position to succeed. You know that LeBron James at 38 years old, who is still one of the most incredible players on the planet, but still ran out of steam, who was trying to guard Jamal Murray, you know how difficult that was. So at the same time, Jimmy Butler, though, a guy that can get to different spots, a guy that actually has attention to detail and the conditioning is different than the other two. A guy that is one of the best in the NBA at ball fakes, at pass fakes, at unorthodox moves, the way he can utilize his body around the rim. And by the way, you just sat up here and said Eric Spoelstra is the best coach in the NBA. So the best coach in the NBA
I didn't say that. I said he's a Hall of Famer coach.
Is he not the best coach in the NBA?
He's a Hall of Famer.
Is he not the best coach in the NBA?
I didn't say he was the best.
Why are you avoiding
I
the
actually
question,
believe that's
Stephen A?
I'm sorry. Are you not answering directly?
I'm not avoiding the question, Molly. I think the best coach in the NBA is Ty Lue.
Okay. Is he top two?
Top two, top three. Yeah.